Yeah, thanks for inviting me to NOAH again this year. I'm Philipp from Quandoo. So what are we doing at Quandoo? In very simple words, we are filling empty restaurant tables with diners that we attract through online and mobile channels. More technically phrased, we are a real-time reservation platform for restaurants. Let me tell you how this works, where we stand, how big this game is, and what's coming next. So what we do is we digitalize the inventory, which means tables of our restaurants, and market empty tables across online channels. The core of our business are the restaurant operating systems, we call it. They consist of three parts. It's an electronic reservation book that runs on every Android hardware. It's a browser-based business center, we call it, and it's a reservation widget that you can compare to a shopping basket in an e-commerce store that is integrated on the restaurant websites and converts the restaurant's own website traffic into reservations. Those operating systems give us the inventory of each restaurant at any given time, so we can market it in real time. On the consumer side, we have mobile and also, again, some traditional web products. With those products, our diners can explore the restaurant space in, meanwhile, 95 cities. They get all information necessary to make a choice, which is their preferred restaurant. And of course, they can make a reservation and receive instant confirmation or purchase packages or offers from our partner restaurants. Where do we stand? We founded the company in December 2012. The first, I would say, 6 to 9 months were almost entirely product development and building the technology. Mid of last year, we started with our first reservation portal, first consumer-facing product. And since then, we expanded into 95 cities across 11 countries, 8 further countries to be launched in the next 6 months. We built a partner network of 4,000 real-time connected restaurants and seated about 3.2 million diners, which corresponds to roughly 50 million in additional revenues for our partner restaurants. We raised basically every 5 to 6 months new financing round. We have now raised 30 million in equity. And if you compare those KPIs to what we presented last year at the NOAH conference, you see the multiples on the right, and you see that the number of restaurants we have grown by factor 5, while the seated diners have grown by factor 13. And the reason for this is that you have extremely strong network effects in this business. So the number of restaurants is growing just with the size of the sales team linear, but the number of seated diners is actually growing exponentially because every restaurant that you add to a platform increases the perceived value for all customers because they have more choice. Or more technically speaking, generic traffic converts better if you have 100 Italian romantic restaurants and not only 1 or 2. So the number of seated diners we increased per restaurant, we increased by factor 10 over the last year. And this is our footprint. So we started in Germany and in May last year, and since October this year, we launched in 9 countries with highly different characteristics. So countries like Germany and the UK, where we are competing against OpenTable, who are addressing the market since 2007. We have Italy, in which a lot of restaurant directories educated the market, that educated restaurant owners that it makes sense to be online, but they had no idea about any transaction-based model. And also markets like Turkey or Poland that actually no reservation service ever touched before. On the small diagrams below the Quandoo flags, you see the ramp up of the supply side and the consumer side, and you see that very quickly we found the right operating model in each kind of market to get the network effects working. But more importantly, what we wanted to do over this year was finding or funneling all those learnings from the different market segments into one global playbook that drives our further expansion. So when I needed to submit the presentation in the beginning of the week, we were in 9 countries. We launched Singapore and South Africa 2 days ago. Middle East will be launched next week. And then we have 8 countries that will follow over the next 6 months. Beside the operating model, we carefully thought about what is our structural, or what is our competitive advantage. And the good news is that we found the structural competitive advantage that it's not so easy to copy. On the one hand, it's a product, and the product actually, our objective when we developed it was to have a product that works for a restaurant owner in Poland or in Turkey or in Malaysia that never used such a system before, as well as fits all the requirements of a restaurant in London that worked with open tables since 5 or 6 years. This is a challenge, but so far it worked out quite nicely. Our marketing approach is not only converting the restaurant's own website traffic into reservations, we are also advertising for our restaurants. We advertise for each restaurant with about 15 to 20,000 keywords. And the third aspect is our pricing model. So since we are not relying on just converting the restaurant's own website traffic in reservations, we can price this at no cost for the restaurant. If you ask a restaurant owner in London how much he's paying to Open Table for his own website traffic, it's maybe 40–50% of his bill. So it's a quite good anchor to come into a market that seems on the first view quite saturated. So how big it is, I mean, you can question why we are so crazy and expanding so fast in a marketplace model where you need to build both sides of the marketplace. The answer is pretty similar. The opportunity is just very, very huge. So the food service business, which is difficult to estimate, it's restaurant, bars, and cafes, were estimated at 1.8 trillion 5 years ago. So it's huge. But it's almost entirely offline. So if you compare online penetration in the restaurant business versus the hotel business, you see that the hotel business is factor 30 more adopted to online services. But the reason is not that consumers are not willing to reserve a table online. The search traffic for the keyword restaurant booking increased by factor 4 over 5 years, including markets that, and most of the markets, that no reservation service ever touched before. This is a reason why huge tech companies went crazy to move into the space this year. Priceline acquired OpenTable for 2.6 billion. Oracle acquired Micros. TripAdvisor acquired La Fourchette. So it's quite M&A intensive. We estimate our net revenue potential of 5 billion in the next 4 years in our target geographies. So what's coming next? The largest opportunity, but also our toughest challenge, is to trigger this offline to online shift on the consumer side, making reserving a restaurant table as popular as booking a hotel room. The next thing that we will do is integrate payment so that our diners can pay the restaurant without waiting for the bill. They can just walk out of the restaurant like they jump out of the Uber limousine. The second dimension is our expansion. We entered into a global alliance with Recruit Holdings. We brought them as a strategic investor to the company because we are confident that with our playbook we are able to launch a lot more markets around the world, but we have very deep respect for markets that are less educated, and there are a lot of less educated markets. So Hot Pepper is successfully running one of the world's largest restaurant networks in Japan and knows what it takes to have 70,000 restaurants live on a platform. So when Marco or Jan invites us next year, hopefully again, we want to be in 25 countries with 15,000 restaurants, 40 million diners, and do everything from reserving to payment. Thanks.